And good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Congressman Joe Courtney. Congressman, welcome. How are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Good to be back, Peter.
Good to see you. It's been a while. What's new?
A lot, which I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about.
I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about. What's going on with you since the last time we've sat down?
Well, we obviously had a big election last November.
Absolutely.
And a new majority now in the U.S. House of Representatives. And last January, Speaker Pelosi, the new speaker, but also, the committees, power shifts to the Democratic side. And so after, a long slog. I'm now chairman of a subcommittee myself, the Sea Power and Projection Forces subcommittee, which deals with Navy, Marine Corps, airlift, sealift issues on the House Armed Services Committee. And as I was telling you off camera, we checked with the House historian to find out when the last time anyone from Connecticut chaired a Navy committee or subcommittee in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it was 1873. His name was Stephen Kellogg, and he was from the great coastal city of Waterbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
Go figure.
Right. Wow. Okay.
But anyway, I mean, it's it's a great subcommittee. Actually, I know some people may find this almost hard to believe, but we actually have very good bipartisan communication and collaboration on the subcommittee, and obviously it has a very important connection to Eastern Connecticut with the home of the largest military installation in New England, Groton Sub Base, and then a shipyard that now surpassed the 17,000 mark in terms of the workforce at Electric Boat. So, and there's going to be more work coming, so that the need to hire more, combined with the fact that a lot of older workers, baby boomer generations, are starting to retire. The latest projection from EB is that they're going to have to hire 14,000 people between now and the mid-2020s to keep up with the work demand that's coming through there, which is pretty exciting. And when they hit 17,000 last January, they actually did a profile of who's working there, and it's now majority millennial. Wow. Which is, again, if you go to the gates early in the morning and watch people coming to work, you'll see that. It's younger, it's more diverse. There's a lot of women now who are even doing the metal trades. Cool. And it is very cool. Wow. And as you know, these are jobs that you can support yourself, and there's a lot of potential for growth as your skills improve. So being on Sea Power, where the shipbuilding plan is developed, obviously is a big deal for the district, and I'm despite a lot of the negativity that I people ask me, how can you stand it? The fact is that we have the opportunity with that assignment to really get some real results for the district.
Now, who else is on the Sea Power Committee with you?
So again, it's a diverse group. I mean, it's a great question, actually. So the ranking Republican is a guy named Rob Whitman from Virginia, and we get along great. He was in my office actually last week 2 times, because we had some meetings with Navy brass to talk about a new contract coming up. But again, when you look at this new Congress, there are over 80 freshmen, which is a huge number. This election last November actually had the biggest voter turnout for a midterm since 1914. The new Democratic majority was elected with a 10 million vote plurality, and as a result, you see an infusion of just a lot of new faces that are there. So 2 of the women on my subcommittee are graduates of Annapolis Naval Academy, Mikey Sherrill from New Jersey and Elaine Luria from Virginia. Mikey served in Iraq. She was a helicopter pilot after she graduated from Annapolis, and Elaine was on surface ships in the Navy, and Jared Golden from up in Maine is on the committee. He's another Iraq War veteran. He's in his 30s. Oh my God. Again, I could go on and on with a lot of the new members. Again, there's obviously a lot of publicity. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and which she's she actually does some really good work on Financial Services Committee, and she questioned Zuckerberg about Facebook the other day, and it was very effective, I thought. But again, in terms of the people who actually flip seats, it was people like Mikey and Elaine and Jared, that in some ways is the real story about last election, and it's great that they've all sort of migrated onto my subcommittee.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
So what else? What else? What else do we want to
So,
talk
I mean,
about?
my other committee is Education and Labor,
Okay.
which you can only chair one subcommittee in the House. So, unfortunately, I'm still on committees,
Yep.
but and can contribute, but I don't chair. But the 2 weeks ago, we reported out the Lower Drug Costs Act.
Yes.
Which is a bill that addresses, I think, one of the reasons why people turned out in such big numbers last November.
Mm-hmm.
When they did exit polls, healthcare costs was the number one issue, and particularly the cost of prescription drugs.
Absolutely.
And there's just no question that you look at the price of insulin,
Yeah.
for example, which in other countries like UK and France, a dosage is $10.
Yeah.
Here it's hundreds of dollars,
Oh, yeah.
and there's no justification because that drug has been off patent for years. And again, the examples go on and on. EpiPen, some of these new specialty drugs that have come on, Humira, which costs tens of thousands of dollars per month for people. So the bill actually addresses that issue by using the negotiating leverage that the federal government has through the Medicare program. There's about 47 million people in the U.S. that use Medicare. And again, by law, and a crazy law, the government can't use that bulk purchase leverage to force the drug manufacturers to come in with prices that are more aligned with the rest of the world.
Right.
So this bill actually kicks that leverage in, and it will target the top 250 cost drugs and force them to have to negotiate with the federal government or face penalties. And we've already had the first analysis by the Congressional Budget Office. It will save the Medicare program $350 billion over the next 10 years, which can make it a better program because you can address some of the problems that we hear about all the time. Mm-hmm. It will cap out of pocket expenses for prescription drugs at $2,000 a year. I had a woman in my office the other day from Killingly who has AFib condition, the heart sort of, and her medication on Medicare on Part D is roughly about $13,000 a year out of pocket. So having a cap of $2,000 on out of pocket basically puts 11 grand in her pocket.
Exactly.
And to use other issues like paying the rent and putting food on the table.
Right.
So we reported it out of committee.
Okay.
The House Ways and Means Committee, which has joint jurisdiction over the bill, they voted this past just a couple days ago to do the same. And we're really excited about the fact that we're going to be voting on this, hopefully in November and get this thing moving. By the way, this isn't going to be just about Medicare. The negotiated prices would also be available for commercial health plans, which most people, who are working have, the Blue Crosses and et cetera. And, AARP, we got just a whole host of groups that have stepped forward to support the bill. So anyway, so that's one issue that we've been working on. The other is college affordability.
Yeah.
It's 2008 was the last time Congress passed the Higher Education Act, which deals with, Pell Grants, Stafford loans, loan forgiveness programs, teach grants, and the cost of education has continued to just skyrocket. The amount of debt that people are carrying is $2 trillion according to the Federal Reserve Board. So the College Affordability Act is going to provide more avenues for people to discharge debt if they can show that they are pursuing occupations in public service, such as teaching, nursing, public safety. We want to extend that to people who work in veterans organizations as well, and nonprofits. And frankly, we also want to extend it to young farmers. I mean, if you look at the demographics right now of who's out there in food production, it's really scary in terms of just how aged out that workforce is right now, and we want to encourage people to get into agriculture. I mean, what's interesting is the School of Agriculture up at UConn, that is actually one of the highest enrollment areas there, but when you make the decision to actually go into farming, it's a scary one because there's a lot of upfront costs and there's a lot of risk. I mean, a bad weather season or pest infestation can ruin a crop, and you're suddenly against the wall there. So, helping them with student loan debt is just a way of trying to reduce the risk level and give them a boost in terms of going into that. It's actually my bill, and it's supported by the Young Farmers Coalition of America, and so that's going to be moving real soon. Actually, next week we're going to start marking it up.
Nice.
Again, impeachment inquiry is a big dominant topic, but again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can still address the issues that people really care about, and I could keep going about veterans issues and other bills that we've been working on.
Well, let's go. Keep going on bills
we're
working on.
All right. Well, good. I'm happy to do that. So. In the Vietnam War, the military used a dioxin chemical, it's called dioxin, as a herbicide to, kind of change the landscape for the troops that were over there. Sure. Agent Orange was the nickname for the dioxin chemical that was used. At the time, you had people serving over there who were handling this material, spraying this material, had absolutely no warning or clue about what the health effects would be in the aftermath. And this has been a knockdown, drag-out battle for almost 50 years to get the Department of Veterans Affairs to recognize people who are suffering from a whole series of heart conditions, cancer conditions that clearly is linked to Agent Orange. So there was a rule that was put into place that you had to actually have foot on the ground during the Vietnam War to qualify for Agent Orange benefits, which again had been hard fought to get them to recognize the medical causation. And but if you were serving in the sea services, Navy, or even Coast Guard, who had people over there as well. But you can't show that you actually disembarked off your ship. You may have been transporting Agent Orange and been exposed to it that way. You were cut off from getting benefits. So there was a bill called the Blue Water Navy Agent Orange Act, which I've been a lead or co-lead sponsor for three or four Congresses. Finally, we got it passed. And President Trump signed it into law in June. January 1st will open enrollment for people who have these conditions and can show, that they served during the conflict, and it will give Navy veterans who, as you can imagine, we have high numbers of those in southeastern Connecticut, the opportunity to get that benefit. So we got that one sort of taken care of. There's another issue with Agent Orange, which is that there's 3 skin conditions. Chloracne, and I can't remember can't pronounce the other 2 conditions there.
That's fine.
But they're very, debilitating conditions. Again, no medical issue in terms of the connection, but you have to demonstrate that the condition manifested itself within a year of service. So there's a veteran up in Andover, Connecticut, Jerry Wright, Army Corps veteran. You should have him on your show sometime. This guy, I mean, he's really an amazing person, but he suffers from this skin condition. And he has pictures of when he served in Vietnam, he was in the Army, where he is literally on the back of a truck spraying this material. And as he pointed out, a gust of wind going in the wrong direction, I mean, you were like just saturated with this stuff. And, and back then, just, take a shower, it'll wash off, no worries. And, but he can't, I mean, for him to show that when he was 20 years old, because that's how old he was when he came home, that he went to a doctor and, they've got a medical record showing that, this condition manifested itself. I mean, it's so unfair to force people to have to demonstrate that when, again, there's no medical dispute about the fact that exposure to dioxin causes this condition. So I have a bill, H.R. 566, the Agent Orange Fairness Act, which Jerry, he got on his motorcycle and literally crisscrossed the country, going to veterans conventions, and over just the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've gotten endorsed by the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Vietnam Veterans of America, Disabled American Vets, and I mean, really, this guy is amazing because it's almost single-handed, the way he's sort of built up this external support for the legislation. And we, just again, within the last couple of weeks, that's translated into probably 3 or 4 dozen House members who've now co-sponsored HR 566.
Cool.
And we're talking to the Veterans Affairs Committee, which has the, they have control of those issues at the VA, about trying to get this bill to move. And it's too bad, though, that 50 years after the conflict, which we're really roughly sort of at that neighborhood now, it's been so hard for people who did what they were supposed to do, and were basically told to go handle stuff that, in retrospect, was really very dangerous. And the least we can do is make sure that they get the benefits and the medical care, which the conditions have forced to have happen.
Mm-hmm. Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Sure.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kelly. It is my job to teach employees the responsible way to sell both tobacco and electronic cigarettes. As of October 1st, 2019, a customer must be at least 21 years old to purchase a tobacco product or an electronic cigarette. The law also says all employees must card anyone who appears to be under the age of 30 years old. The free updated prevention education program will be available on October 1st, 2019 at cttobaccotraining.com.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide, it provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, sitting here with Congressman Joe Courtney. Congressman, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Great to have you here.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit in the first segment about things going on in Washington. Let's open up this segment talking about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Act and what it is and how it works.
So back in 2007, when I was a freshman, we passed the College Cost Reduction Act, and included in that, included in that bill was a program that basically said that we know the demographics of this country are changing because you had that big baby boom bulge, and then the birth rates, have kind of fluttered down since then, and that there's going to be this sort of big bulge of retirements in pretty key areas, that kind of help keep the country moving forward, like teaching and nursing and public safety, et cetera. And so the bill set up a program that said if you have student loan debt and you are in those key occupations and you're making your payments on time, after 10 years you can apply to have the debt discharged. And that sort of is like the light at the end of the tunnel for people who, and particularly in other parts of the country, a teaching job, can be $30,000, $40,000 a year, and you got to pay rent and do everything else, but student loan payments can really kill that, chew that up. So anyway, so you can do the math. 2007 was when the law passed. 2017, 2018 was when the first sort of cohort of people. Sure. And unfortunately, the Department of Education under Secretary DeVos, who has actually tried to, by budget, kill this program 2 times, has been rejecting people's applications for discharge, even though, again, they did everything they were supposed to do. There's a lawsuit in U.S. District Court in New York to force the department to obey the law, which seems kind of like a reasonable request.
Right.
And we've had calls in our office from people who, it's like chutes and ladders. You think you're going up the ladder, and then suddenly the department, pushes you down a chute in terms of trying to get the help that you need. So anyway, the lawsuit's trying to, by court decision, get the department to follow through on what was promised. And then the College Affordability Act, which we discussed a minute ago, is actually, we're going in and just trying to get this thing completely cleaned up and debugged. And as I said, we're also going to try and expand it to another population, people who help veterans and who work in nonprofits.
Nice. Now let's talk about the Job Initiative Act. Or, no, hold
let's
on.
see.
Wrong one.
Yep.
Job training initiative.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know. And when we talk about, what the population and demographics, as I said, right now there's just a lot of vacancies and openings in a lot of different areas in the U.S. economy. But what we don't have is a job training systems that's really, or if we do, it's kind of sporadic, that gets people sort of connected to those opportunities because, they just, whether it's through the education system or the job training programs, they just really weren't aligned to where they ought to have been. So for example, I can give you, cybersecurity right now is such a problem out there. And it's not just for the government. The banking system, healthcare system. I mean, everybody's getting hacked and everybody's getting spearphished out there right now. And the need to get, qualified people who can actually help create hardened systems to protect from that is huge. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of job openings in that area there. But, the education system really wasn't sort of attuned yet to the fact that cybersecurity was suddenly this like new skill that has such high demand. So, but you can go. I mean, healthcare right now. We need to get not just nursing degrees, but people who are sort of certified below that in terms of different key areas. There's lots of shortages. In the healthcare sector, information technology I mentioned earlier. Obviously, defense manufacturing with the huge hiring that we talked about earlier. The list goes on. And so, we are going to be doing a bill on the Education and Labor Committee to sort of modernize apprenticeships, expand the scope of what is an apprentice. I mean, you think of apprenticeships usually as somebody, swinging a hammer or holding a blowtorch, which it still will be in the future. But the fact is that, there's a broader scope that we can use the apprenticeship model to sort of help with those key skills and occupations. I mean, in some ways, it's not a bad problem to have because what all we're trying to do is connect people to opportunities that are out there.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, we got to get moving, because as I said, the number of openings in the economy is quite extraordinary.
Absolutely. So I guess one of the other topics we want to talk about this afternoon is why is public access so important to you?
I think when you look at one of the things that, in my opinion, is sort of driving some of the polarization that exists in politics, but frankly, just in life in general, is that, the way communication and media has been sort of fragmented has really kind of created, almost alternate views of reality sometimes. And frankly, it's on both sides, and it's not sort of pointing finger one way or the other. And what I think is really, because a lot of our mail that we get, which is, again, just going up and up and up.
Absolutely.
It's based on information that, a lot of times it's just not kosher, it's not correct.
Exactly.
And so you're spending a lot of time in terms of communicating with constituents, which we don't mind.
No, of course not.
But just sort of, providing sort of facts, from the, sources like the Congressional Research Service, the Library of Congress. I mean, stuff that is just completely neutral in terms of, the analysis that they do. In my opinion, public access is another one of those sort of neutral avenues, neutral media sources that, when you guys go into a local planning and zoning board or board of selectmen meeting or, up at the state capitol or C-SPAN, down in Washington, and you just turn the camera on and just sort of let it, just have it completely transparent about what actually is happening. To me, that's the best antidote to the sort of fight over facts in terms of, and I hate even using the term fake news, but, the bottom line is that we need to start finding places where people can all sort of say, well, public access, all you guys do is turn the camera on and the lights and make sure that, public meetings, briefings, press conferences are just, from start to finish.
Yep.
Out there for people, and then you can draw your own conclusions.
Exactly.
And so I give you and your team here great credit for the fact that you obviously are open to both sides of the aisle, and
Absolutely.
and you don't try and sort of have your own sort of spin on how you present things.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And again, I know protecting public access is a battle right now, the FCC and other places, and anyone who questions the value of public access, really ought to think about, sort of the way, there's divisiveness, and part of it is because of the news sources that people use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If people want more information or to contact you regarding issues or constituents.
Well, first of all, you can call our local office in Norwich,
Yep.
860-886-0139. And frankly, if you wanted to communicate to DC, sometimes doing it through Norwich, if you have
Is the easiest?
it is definitely the easiest,
Gotcha.
because the mail screening
In DC
in Washington,
probably gets a little
for
crazy.
reasons that it's unfortunate. It's just a reality. Slows things down.
Absolutely.
So Norwich is a great sort of spot. Up in Enfield, we also have our satellite office up there as well. Certainly we have a website, Courtney.house.gov, which people can. There's lots of ways you can email into our office. And let me tell you, a lot of people are using it.
There you go.
And we welcome it.
There you go. Congressman Joe, I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
On behalf of Joe, Courtney, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.